Donald Trump looks set to shake up US defence policy with appointments which could change their relationship with NATO. Pete Hegseth, his nominee for Secretary of State for Defence, has said that the US does not need to be bound by the Geneva Conventions and must become ruthless, uncompromising and an overwhelmingly lethal force geared to winning wars according to American rules. The president-elect is also reportedly planning an executive order which could force 15,000 transgender people out of their posts within the US military. And let's get the view then of Philip Breedlove, a former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO in Europe and a 4-star US general. General Breedlove, thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be back with you.
NATO allies, I know, will be very concerned about the nomination of Pete Hegseth and his credentials. Should they be?
I'm going to be as honest with you as I can because all I can offer you is my personal opinion and my personal interactions with Secretary of Defense nominee Hegseth. And then also I have a pretty good understanding of his military background. And so I think that will be important. I think that a lot of the hysteria that is out there is probably not well-founded. My interactions with the man have been through the Fox News enterprise, and across the last 3 years, I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews on Fox, as well as the liberal outlets as well, CNN, MSNBC, and others. But my interactions on Fox and my interactions with Hegseth has been that he's been a pretty straight arrow. He is a man that has a real and detailed military career. It was rather short, but he went where his nation asked him to go, and he did the missions that his nation asked him to do. And he served, as far as I know, with distinction. There are no military blemishes out there.
Okay.
So the other positive thing I would say is that he, in his interactions on the news, has been what we would call a soldier's soldier. He is very much concerned about how the policies of senior people affect soldiers.
Okay. Look, in terms of what we understand his military experience to be, he was sent to Afghanistan, wasn't he? So he definitely had service in Afghanistan. As you say, his career was short, but that doesn't necessarily mean that his credentials need to be derided at all. What do you make of his support for Israel? His US foreign policy is heavily focused on that. He has said, if you love America, you should love Israel. And it's clear Israel is prioritised by Pete Hegseth. No misinterpretation possible there. He is incredibly supportive. We Christians, he said, alongside our Jewish friends and their remarkable army in Israel, need to pick up the sword of unapologetic Americanism and defend ourselves. We need an American crusade, is what he said there on that situation. What do you think about that?
Well, the way it is posed and the way he is being quoted are obviously going to rankle some concerns. I think that you said something that's very important. A part of Pete Hegseth is his Christian faith. He doesn't hide from that. And his Christian faith very much reflects a support for Israel, as most Christians do. May I just tell you right up front, that includes me.
Okay.
And so I'm answering from my own expression. What we don't hear when it comes to Israel is that this is all about Iran. All roads start in Tehran and all roads lead back to Tehran. And so when people are attacking or supporting folks, when it comes to Israel, they try to paint this about the Palestinians and the Israelis. And the antagonists here are clearly Iran. And to that point, the Hezbollahs and the Hamases of the world, they could care less about the Palestinians. They are an extension of Iran, and Iran could care less about Palestinians. To them, Palestinians are a tool by which to force the rest of the world to throttle Israel, because Iran is incapable of doing that in a military sense. So I think that the picture and the story is a little bigger than some would paint when they're trying to take a political position about this appointee.
Will he be completely neutral? Can he depart from his own personal faith, in other words, as a Christian, supportive of Jewish people, Jewish Israelis? Will he be able to separate the both? I suppose it's absolutely fair enough if he has faith, but the whole crucial thing here is that he needs to be able to put that to one side for the good of America's defense policy.
This remains to be seen. He is a uniquely intelligent man. He is highly and well educated. And I think that he is going to have to understand that the position that he's about to take, he has to consider both sides. We teach in university, as you know, I teach at the Sam Nunn School of International Affairs at Georgia Tech. And we talk to our students all the time about if all you consider is the right side of a problem, or if all you consider is the left side of a problem, you are not doing yourself, your country, or your world a favor, because one has to be able to consider both sides of the issue. And I think that Pete will be faced with this when he moves into his new office, because he will be charged, like any other senior military person or senior civil servant, with giving his boss the best military advice that he can. And that has to represent both sides of an issue.
Yeah, a couple of brief ones for you. Are you concerned about the validity, about the future of NATO under Pete Hegseth, should his nomination follow through?
I'm not concerned, first and foremost, about the validity of NATO under his boss, President-elect Trump. I would ask you to just remember that before the first Trump administration, the rhetoric was pretty tough. And I had just left NATO myself, and my voice was pretty strong in opposition to some of the language that then President-elect Trump used. But here are the facts that have to be considered. For all of the really tough rhetoric, and I would call it tough, under Trump, our troop presence grew in Europe. Our investment in U.S. infrastructure in Europe grew under President Trump. And our participation in exercises, and I ask you to go back and look at Trident Juncture, the biggest exercise since Reforger of the Cold War, our exercises grew. So for all of the tough language, and it was hard to deal with as a former NATO commander, the actual performance of that Trump administration, things improved in Europe for NATO and U.S. forces in NATO. So I would just say, as we approach this next Trump administration, again, the language is tough. And Secretary Hegseth, if he's approved, will have to reflect the position of his boss. But I think we need to wait and see how it will play out, and see if it plays out as it did in the first Trump administration.
Yeah, look, thanks for being with us. I'll leave it there for time. Philip Breedlove, a former four-star US general, Supreme Allied Commander of NATO in Europe. Great to speak to you. Thank you.